They're sick and tired of CEOs making 300 times more than their average worker. They're sick and tired of the wealthiest people in this country becoming much richer, while 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. And Sean Fain in the UAW walked into the negotiations with the automobile industry and they said, guess what? You guys, you CEOs are making tens of millions of dollars a year. Your compensation packages in recent years has soared. And we got guys in the plants, we got women in the plants making 16, 17, 18 bucks an hour. And you know what, CEOs? You ain't going to continue that. And what the UAW did in negotiating a very strong contract for their workers sent the message to workers all over this country that you can stand up, fight back, and take on the corporate interest. Sean, thank you very much. So let me get to the point. Sean made it. We're here to make sure that Kamala Harris is the next president of the United States. And when we talk about not going back, what we're saying, no more racism, no more sexism, no more homophobia, no more xenophobia. And when we talk about going forward, we're talking about a government that represents all of us, not just the billionaire class. Now, I could go on for too long a time giving you all the reasons why Donald Trump should not be elected president. But let me limit myself. Number one, and I mean this one really seriously, I don't care what your political views are. I know people in this room probably sympathetic to Sean and me and Kamala, but there are people out there who may not agree with everything I stand for, one or two. And, you know, there are folks who disagree with Kamala, and that's fine. That's called democracy. That's fine. But this is what I hope. If you are a conservative Republican, you are raising your kids, like everybody else in America as a parent tries to do, to tell the truth, right? What difference? You're Republican, Democrat, you'd say to your kids, tell the truth, even when it's hard. Don't be a bully. Don't go to your classroom and you see somebody who maybe looks a little bit different, acts a little bit different, may not, be all that strong. Don't pick on that person. We, as a nation, cannot have as president somebody who is a bully and a pathological liar. And interestingly enough, it is not just people like me who are saying that. The people who have been closest to Trump when he was president, they said, we know the guy, don't vote for him. And these are conservatives. Mike Pence and I agree on nothing except that Donald Trump is not fit to be president. Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney and I agree on probably even less, except they know Trump, and they know that a person of his lack of character should not be president of the United States. But it's not just that he is a pathological liar. In Michigan, in Vermont, all over this country, people have put their lives on the line in the armed forces to defend our nation and to defend our democracy, our American way of life. And what democracy, the heart and soul of democracy, is elections. And I've been in a lot of elections. Sometimes I've lost, Fortunately, most times I've won. And that's what happens when you run for office. Sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. But what people who believe in democracy understand is that when you lose an election, you get on the phone, you congratulate the winner, and you learn from your defeat. You don't go whining and crying and say, oh my goodness, they stole the election. Oh boy, terrible, terrible. The only way I could lose is if there is fraud. When you do that, you undermine American democracy. If you go around, I want you to think about it for 2 seconds. If somebody goes around as Trump has, it's the only way I can lose an election is if there is fraud. That means he has no intention of accepting defeat. And we all know what happened. We all know that he encouraged an insurrection for the first time in American history to prevent the peaceful transfer of power. So if you believe in democracy, if you believe in the rule of law, no matter what your politics may be, you cannot support Donald Trump for president. All of us are aware, we're all aware of what is going on in North Carolina right now. Over 200 people are dead, probably billions of dollars in destruction, not only in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida. Terrible, terrible situation. But I want everybody here to understand that is not an aberration. That is not, oh my God, something terrible. They've had an unprecedented storm in North Carolina that destroyed communities. What we are seeing all over America, all over the world, are unprecedented weather disturbances. We have seen forest fires all over California and Canada. We have seen heat waves, record-breaking heat waves in Europe, drought here in the Midwest. We have seen temperatures soar to over 120 degrees in India and Saudi Arabia. People are dying. People can't go out on the streets, coming close to as high as human beings can tolerate. Every scientist who has studied the issue understands that climate change is real. It is caused by human activity. And they understand that if we're going to save this planet and provide a decent life for our kids and future generations, we got to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel. That's what they understand. Donald Trump, on the other hand, and I quote, thinks that climate change is a hoax originating in China, end quote. All right. Now, not only is that a dumb statement, not only it is a statement at odds with the entire scientific community, but it's much more than that. And I want you to hear this clearly. If Trump gets elected president, the fight against climate change is over. We have surrendered. We have lost. And for you younger people, I worry very much what this planet will look like in your lifetimes and in your kids and in your grandchildren's lives. Because if the United States, the largest economy in the world, turns its back on the fight against climate change, China will do the same, Europe will do the same, and all over the world people say, hey, the United States says drill, baby, drill. We don't have to worry about climate change, and the future of this planet is very much in doubt. That's what this election is about. And I'll tell you something else that this election is about. Since the inception of this country, way back, George Washington's time, women have been fighting for equal rights. And they have struggled along with their male allies to end second-class citizenship. It wasn't until 1920 that women won the right to vote in national elections. 30, 40, 50 years ago, women were unable to get the education that they desired, couldn't get the work that they desired. When I was mayor of Burlington, Vermont in the 1980s, when I came to office, there were 0 women in police departments because that wasn't women's work. Being an electrician, a welder, a plumber, construction worker, not women's work. Being in the military, not women's work. But women and their male allies fought to break down those barriers, and they won. And then a few years ago, the Supreme Court rendered one of the worst decisions in its history in Roe v. Wade, and they took away a woman's constitutional right to control her own body. Now, Donald Trump boasts, he is proud. He appointed 3 right-wing Supreme Court justices who helped make that terrible decision possible. Kamala Harris has spent her life fighting for women's rights. The choice is clear: Kamala Harris for president. Now let me say a few things that you're not going to see much about on corporate media or in the halls of the Congress. And that is, today we are living in an economy which is just great for the people on top. And I want you to hear this clearly. The 1% today are the 1% that have never, ever in the history of America had it so good. While 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck, today we have more income and wealth inequality than we have ever had in the history of our country. We have more concentration of ownership than we've ever had. That means in every sector of the economy: agriculture, transportation, financial services, media, you name it. Fewer and fewer large corporations control what is produced and the prices that we pay. We have today more corporate greed than at any time in the history of this country. You know why prices are soaring? Check out the corporate profits of the companies that are raising prices. If you can believe it, and I'm a little embarrassed to give you this information, but you got to know it. In America today, you got 3 people who own more wealth than the bottom half of American society. Now, the other day, Donald Trump, it was yesterday actually, had a rally, and at his side was Elon Musk. Now, while Sean Fain and the UAW are fighting for wage increases for people who make $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, Elon Musk fought for a salary increase of $50 billion. Well, they gave it to him, but the judge just overruled that, so. I know it's hard, Elon. You're going to have to make it on the $150 billion. All right. We'll help you out when you need it, but try to survive. And in the midst of all of this income and wealth inequality, we have a rigged tax system. So the billionaire class pays an effective tax rate lower than a truck driver or a nurse, and you got large corporations out there that in some cases make billions, pay virtually nothing in federal income tax. You know, we have in America a lot of anger. People are feeling very angry. And you know what? They have a right to be angry. But if you are angry, make sure you know who you're getting angry at and why you're getting angry at them. Don't get angry at people who are worse off than you are. Get angry at the people who caused the problem and are benefiting from the issues. So when you talk about why people are angry, I want you all to listen to this. Over the last 50 years, while there has been, as all of you know, an explosion in technology and a huge increase in worker productivity, the average American worker today is earning, in inflation adjusted for dollars, less than he or she did 50 years ago. That's why people are angry. And your generation, younger people, everything being equal, unless we turn it around, and we must turn it around, your generation may have a lower standard of living than your parents. That's right. So what we have got to do is to make it clear that this country belongs to all of us, not just the people on top. Now, the reason I love doing these events with Sean is that Sean is one of the great labor leaders in this country. And what we need to do now, we need to do the day after Kamala wins, is build a political movement of working people who are going to fight for the needs of working people. Now, I'm the chairman of an important committee, the Health, Education, Labor Committee in Washington. I deal with the billionaires every single day. And let me say a few things about them. These are not nice guys. You know, they come across on TV, they're smart, they're this, they're that. They make contributions to the Children's Hospital, do all these things. But at the end of the day, they are extraordinarily greedy people. They want it all. You would think that if you're worth a few $1 billion, you might relax a little bit. Enjoy your life. Not them. They need billions more. And if they have to see Social Security and Medicare cut so they can get more tax breaks, that's what they want. They have an endless amount of money, and I mean endless. I mean, you're seeing it on TV right now. One of the issues, I want everybody to be clear about this, one of the major issues that we have got to deal with as a nation is a corrupt campaign finance system. You know, what democracy is about is one person, one vote. You got to vote, you got to vote, you got to vote. What democracy is not supposed to be about is billionaires in both parties through their super PACs buying elections and having undue influence in the political process. Now, I would like many of you, and one of the things that I'm really proud of is that over the last number of years, we have seen more and more young people run for office and win. Check out the Progressive Caucus in the U.S. Congress. Dozens of young people, often people of color, who are fighting for the working class in this country. So I would like you to run for office, but I don't want you to have to beg wealthy people for campaign contributions. That's why we need public funding of elections. Now, the agenda that I am fighting for, the progressive agenda that Sean and I and others are fighting for, people like Donald Trump think it's far left. We are far left. So let me tell you a little bit about the so-called far left agenda. Sean and I and others have the wild and radical and crazy idea. Are you ready? I mean, I don't want you collapsing now. All right, brace yourself. Take a deep breath. We think health care is a human right, should be available to all people. I know, my God, how radical far left can you be? Just so happens that every other major country on earth guarantees health care to all people. You know what's radical? What's radical is having a health care system where we spend twice as much per capita on health care as other nations and have 87 million people uninsured or underinsured. That's radical. What's radical is that we pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. That's radical. So the far left agenda says that every man, woman, and child in this country should have health care as a human right without out-of-pocket expense, that the function of a health care system is not just to make billions in profit for the insurance companies and the drug companies, but health care for all. All right, I've given you one far-out, crazy, radical idea. Ready for another one? Okay. Now, this one you really got to brace yourself, will you? I don't know if we have any EMT people in the room. I don't want people collapsing on me right and left. All right, medical staff, are you ready? Here we go. We have to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. Oh, God. You want to hear a radical idea? The radical idea is we have a minimum wage in Washington right now of $7.25 an hour. That's pretty radical. That's pretty crazy. So I think we should make sure that everybody in this country who's working 40 hours a week is not living in poverty. I think we should raise the minimum wage, in my view, to at least $17 an hour. All over this country, the good news is that workers want to join unions. Because they know that when you are part of a union, you engage in collective bargaining, you can earn decent wages, decent benefit, decent working conditions. The problem is right now, you got many large corporations and companies that use all kinds of illegal activity to make it harder for workers to join unions. They fire workers, they threaten workers, they're going to shut down the plant, et cetera, et cetera. And that is why we have to pass what we call the PRO Act to make it easier for workers to join unions. We live in a competitive global economy. We do not do well unless we have the best educated workforce in the world. We used to have the highest percentage of our people as college graduates. That is no longer the case. What we need to do is make sure that any person, young, old, blue collar, whatever you may be, who needs a higher education, you want to go to college, great. You want to learn how to become an electrician, a welder, great. Whether you want to go to medical school, great. But whatever you need to do, you should not have to go bankrupt or go deeply into financial debt to pay for that education. Now, under President Biden and Vice President Harris, we have canceled student debt for 5 million Americans. In my view, we have got to do more, but something else that we've got to do is make sure that every public college and university in America, including Michigan State, every community college, tuition free. One of the very first things that Kamala Harris talked about when she became the Democratic candidate was the housing crisis in America. And she's absolutely right, whether it is Burlington, Vermont, my city, or wherever it is. We have a homelessness problem, and we have a problem in the sense that working families in many cases are paying 40, 50, 60% of their limited incomes for housing. And when you spend so much on housing, you don't have anything left to spend on your other needs. So what Kamala said, which is right, we have got to build 3 million units of affordable and low-income housing in America. And we've got to end the greed of these corporate landlords who are swallowing up housing units all over this country. 25% of senior citizens in this country are living on $15,000 a year or less. I haven't a clue how anybody, let alone a senior, can live on $15,000 or less. Meanwhile, my Republican colleagues, 80% of my Republican colleagues in the House, they want to cut Social Security, raise the retirement age, etc. So if I have anything to say about it, and I do, we ain't going to cut Social Security. You know what we're going to do? We're going to expand Social Security. We're going to lift the cap on taxable income, and when you do that, you can significantly increase the kind of benefits that our recipients get. And for the younger people, we can extend the life solvency of Social Security for decades. And while we move toward a Medicare for all single-payer program, we could take immediate steps by expanding Medicare to cover dental, hearing, and vision. And some of my critics say, well, you know, those are nice ideas, Bernie. How are you going to pay for them? I will tell you how we're going to pay for them. At a time when the richest people in this country have never, ever had it so good. When, as I mentioned earlier, the effective tax rates of billionaires is lower than what you are paying in effective tax rate. Yes, we say to the billionaire class, whether you like it or not, you're going to start paying your fair share of taxes. We're spending $1 trillion a year on the Pentagon. $1 trillion a year. It's the only agency of government that has not submitted to an independent audit. There's a lot of waste and fraud. We want a strong military. I believe in that. But I don't believe in massive waste and fraud and excessive profiteering in the military-industrial complex. So, my friends, here we are at a pivotal moment in American history. We are looking at an economy which is undergoing massive change through artificial intelligence and robotics and other technologies. And we have got to ask ourselves, who's going to benefit from all of that change? Now, Sean and the UAW, when they started negotiating their contracts, people thought they were crazy. You know, not just they were asking for wage increases and other things. They were asking for a 32-hour work week. People said, what are you talking about? And what Sean understands, and what people all over this country understand, is that if we're going to see an increase in worker productivity, it should be the working class of this country that benefits from that increase, not just the people on top. So we are talking about a reduction in the work week. And let me tell you something that is almost never talked about. As a nation, despite spending twice as much as other countries on health care, our life expectancy, how long we live, is lower than most other countries. That's bad. But I'll tell you what is even worse. The gap in life expectancy between the 1% and the working class is about 10 years. And there are many parts of America today where life expectancy is actually in decline because of what physicians call diseases of despair, drug addiction, alcoholism, and even suicide. People are giving up hope. So one of the reasons for that decline in life expectancy, it's not just healthcare, that's important, but it's not the only reason. What is the other reason? What are working class people exposed to every day? What's the word? Well, yeah, but the word is stress. What do I mean by that? What do I mean? I grew up in a working class family, and I know what stress in a family is about. What it is about is if your landlord raises your rent by 20%, if you're rich, you say, oh, it's too bad. All right, dear, make out the check. Who cares? We got the money. If you don't have the money and your landlord raises rent by 20%, what do? You got to move. You got to find another apartment. Where is an apartment? If my kid's in school, I'm going to have to take my child out of school, find another school for the kid, and go through all of that stuff. If I get sick, or my kid gets sick, or my mother gets sick, and we have an insurance policy with a large deductible, how in God's name am I going to pay? What do? Not eat in order to pay the doctor's bill. You know, if you're rich and your car breaks down, you take it to the repair guy, costs $500 or $1,000, so what? If you don't have any money and your car breaks down and you can't get it back, you can't get to work. And if you can't get to work, you get fired. That's what stress is about. And when you live under those conditions, how am I going to feed my family? How am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to pay the doctor bill? When you live under that stress 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it eats away at your body. It wears your body down. That's not Bernie Sanders, the scientist. That's what the doctors tell us. And it breaks your spirit and affects your mental health. So when we talk about using the new technology to create a better world, not to throw workers out on the street, what we're saying is that in America, we want that technology to create a better life for all of our people. And if worker productivity is going to be improved, that's great. Workers benefit from that, not just the CEOs and the large corporations. All right, let me conclude by saying this. Next 4 weeks, we've got to work our tails off to see the Kamala and Tim are elected. The day after, we have got to continue the struggle because we are taking on some very powerful forces. We are the wealthiest nation in the history of the world. There is no reason why we are the only major country not to guarantee health care to all, not to guarantee paid family and medical leave, while we have a starvation minimum wage, while we have massive income and wealth inequality, why we have a high housing crisis, why 25% of our seniors are living on $15,000 a year. That is not the America we should be. Now, the people on top, they got all kinds of money, unlimited amounts of money. They have an enormous amount of political influence. Now, I don't have a PhD in mathematics, but I do know this. 99% is a hell of a larger number than 1%. So if we stand together and not let demagogues divide us up by the color of our skin or where we were born or our sexual orientation, if we stand together and fight for a nation of economic, social, racial justice, we can create an extraordinary nation in which all of our people have a high quality of life. That's the goal. Let's do it. Thank you all very much.